So while most of y'all do know certain things to put on your weapons and stuff like that, some people still question whether or not they need to put certain weapons or certain, type attributes on said weapons to get the most from it. Now, there is a spreadsheet, and I'll show you the spreadsheet here shortly, of which ones show the best for damage to targets out of cover, which ones to get the best damage to armor, targets out of cover. But the one part that's missing from it is damage to health. Now, tanks like the big chungas, the little walker dogs, the little Wally turrets and stuff like that roam around, even say like LMG guys, helmets and stuff like that, is damage to health. So it really becomes a question of, do you want the damage to health on your weapon or not? And some of these things are not shown on little things that you go around and look for. So we need to discuss this because, it may break certain builds, make them stronger or weaker, depending on if you do or do not have those pieces on there. So we're going to go over that today and find out which of these actually does or doesn't need it by the statuses and the skills. So here's a little spreadsheet if some of y'all don't know. So as some of y'all can see, mostly like assault turrets, sniper turrets, and striker drones, those that do bullets, are not affected by anything. So we will be looking into seeing if those mainly do change for damage to health. But as you can also see, almost everything that does a status or even like oxidizer, those all benefit from damaged armor and damaged targets out of cover. So we're definitely going to be easily able to find that those do damage to health, because nothing of this except for oxidizer goes by damage to targets out of cover. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these and see what we can find. So right now I have my skill build on. Now my skill build, we're going to go over with the in-sync because it's mostly for skills. So we're not trying to put too many pieces on here. We're just going to use the Harmony, which I have damage targets out of cover on it because I just want the personal damage. Now, we're going to use Insane because we want to find out what the skills will do. Now, you can put whatever you want here. You can put crit chance, stability, things like that. It really doesn't matter. Those don't affect the skills. So what we're going to be talking about is when we go to this and we recal it, we're going to go between damage to targets out of cover, damage to armor, damage to health, and even some people say that damage to headshot or headshot damage on this will even matter as well because the turret lands headshots, which it actually doesn't. So I'm going to prove that is wrong with this. That'll be fairly easy. You can see where the bullets land if you actually take a look at it. But some of these other ones, these even could be possibilities that you could put on here rather than those, because it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. But we have our basic skill build right here, and we're going to be testing it out versus, because a capacitor, even though it does give you more damage, it's mostly, is this damage to armor and damage to health even good for the piece that you're using? Does that actually matter? So the first one up, as you can see, we'll set this target up. You can see we're getting damage. That's the damage targets out of cover. So our 280 is what it maxes out at, and it didn't even really change for the health. So yeah, 280 flat almost all the way across. So now we've changed it up and we can put the health damage on here. So when this does get past the armor, we should see a change in the damage to health, right? We're going to test and see if the turret or even the drone, because the drone technically does the same as the turret. So if the turret gets it, the drone will as well. So we're going to test on the turret mainly because it's our highest damaging piece. Okay, it's still stacking. 280. 280 all the way across the board again. So no, damage to health does not help the turrets. So it doesn't help the drone, it won't help the sniper turret. So we have headshot damage, which we're going to disprove right here that this doesn't work at all. All right, transferring over. $280. Yep, same numbers. So damage to headshots does not count either. All right, and then we have damage to armor. So we had damage targets out of cover, headshot damage, health damage. None of them changed. Let's see if damage to armor does. Now I will say this, it almost takes it down a little bit faster, but it doesn't gain on the damage, the actual damage. So it does seem to take it down a little bit faster for some reason. Maybe it's just taking the armor chunks off, but still same damage numbers. So yeah. And just in case, I'm going to show y'all one more time, damage to targets out of cover. Just in case you think the first part wasn't there, we got damage to targets out of cover. Same thing, all the way across. 280. Yep, same thing. So none of those matter. So it really doesn't matter. It's what you want on your weapon to get the weapon's damage out. None of these actually help the skill. So now we need to go test the damage to health and all that against status. So now we have our standard status build. We have an everlasting gaze, and of course we already know damage to armor does help. From the spreadsheet and personal knowledge, we know damage to armor does help things like this, and especially perpetuation. That's going to give it more damage. So we're going to try it out with this because, one, we don't have another weapon, we don't have anything, no extra attributes, no damage to health, no damage targets out of cover, you know, just the damage to armor on the bottom. Nothing major, but all this across the board with this. So also we'll be trading off the vial later for one reason, is because this does give the extra ticks and damage. So we want to see a baseline damage, not those extra ticks or anything. So I'll be trading this off for a second piece of, say, Wyvern to get the extra status effects and skill damage. But I also want to test just to see what the vial is like this versus, say, well, actually I guess I don't have it on here, say a second piece of Wyvern, which would be the status effects and everything, to see if the second piece of Wyvern would do more damage than, say, just the vial mask. So we'll be testing that out in this video as well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to test this out first. Forgot. So let's do the damage. Let's see what we get. Everlasting gaze. 585 and was at 128. Then it drops down just a little bit because it wasn't the original one. So yeah, that's not bad. So we're getting almost 700,000. Nearly 700,000 on just one burn. So we're trading out this vial mask for this and the second piece of Wyvern. We got the perpetuation ready. Okay, we're good. 6 something, and then it drops to 5. Let's try that again. Come on, there we go. Yeah, never mind. So yeah, it was still about 6 something and then 5. So yeah, definitely the vial mask is stronger than a second piece of Wyvern for the extra damage, because you get the extra tick and everything, which is based on the concussion grenade. So is it 6? Yeah, 631. So yeah, we were hitting for almost 700,000 versus 631, so definitely better. So while we know the vial mask is better, I don't want to show that extra tick damage. I just want to show the damage. So we're going to stick with this build right here, this version, and we're going to trade this off, as we showed, for damage to health, damage to armor, and so on. So here we go. 596, taking away. It's on health, staying at 596, so damage to health does keep it the same. Versus you saw when it has damage to armor and you have damage to health, it changes from one being higher, one being lower. So damage to health does help status builds. Let's try this again. $596 all the way across. 596 staying the whole way across. So damage to health does help status. It does help burns. So that's important to note. because that means we could literally throw a shotgun like this right here on, which has the best accuracy so we can land headshots, max out damage to armor and damage to health, and get even more potential damage out of our builds with status effect. Because if the Scorpio's damage to armor and all shotguns give us that extra damage to armor, we can throw on damage to health and get even more out of it. So if we land this shot or one of those pellets hits there, we get extreme damage to their armor, and then we also get more damage to their health. So thus proving shotguns like this one right here, because it gives the highest accuracy so you can land those headshots even though it's only got 2 bullets, is really good versus just say like something like this with damage to armor on it. So if you have a shotgun even as a backup weapon, not this one, but say like a backup boomstick or something, you could throw that onto the build and then get perpetuation onto it, get that damage to armor, get the damage to health, put perpetuation down here where I have flatline, and boom, you could have a shotgun as your backup and keep the everlasting gaze and get even more damage to a player or an NPC. And you see the damage targeted cover on that one didn't change, just the damage to armor. So yeah, we really want that damage to health on a shotgun with perpetuation, land that headshot, and then basically boom, hit them like this right here with this one, and we get extra damage when it does get to their health. So that's going to help against say Chongas and tanks when you jammer pulse them as well. So now for the final one, because now that we've learned all that, we need to test the Oxy. So the hard part about testing this one is we have to have a weapon, so we're going to use a backfire, which has no extra damages, no nothing. And we're going to get this thing down to just health. And this is the tricky part, because we don't want to do too much damage where we can leave the target up. We just want to get it down to the health. So we're not going to shoot our weapons, we're not going to get anything extra procs. We just want to get it down to there, right about there, where it's got nothing but health. Alright, now we're just waiting for the transfer to come back from the waveform to go back to the other side. Once it goes fully back to the other side, we're going to hit this thing and see what the max damage is. And this is before we get any extra damage to armor, damage targets out of cover, damage to health. So we have 264 or 254, 264. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. So now that we've got that one, we're going to keep doing the same thing. We're going to bring this one down to X amount, try to bring it down to nothing but the health. Now here's the tricky part. You have to test this properly. As you can see, I've got a weapon here with damage targets out of cover, but it's got max health damage. We cannot use that weapon. We have to use a weapon that just has damage to health maxed out. So we got to find an AR. And this is the tricky part, because a lot of people don't understand it, that you cannot have any of those down there. Doesn't matter what we're looking for, we just want to have a weapon with max damage to health. And I believe I have one, which should be right here. Yes, shield splinter. See, damage to health maxed out. Nothing extra, nothing special, no in sync. So we're going to throw this one on, because we were using the backfire, which has crit chance and magazine size, nothing extra. So we put that on, hit the target, 264. So no, it does not help any kind of Oxy. So the only thing damage to health does help is status effect type builds. So in short, if you're facing, say, the big Chonga looking guys, sledgehammers, minigunners, those kinds of guys, dogs, little Wally tanks, let's say you fight off against, say, hyenas and their little weak spots and stuff like that. Any of those that have those weak spots, or have like extra armor for their helmets, things of that nature, you want damage to health for it. Which now brings a giant question of, is the Vile Mask better, or would a Hollow Man mask for, say, a status effect type build with, say, skill damage or status effects, and then getting a yellow core and all that be even better, because you would get the same. You get the hazard protection, you get the damage to health, you get the status effect damage, you get the yellow core to give you the max amount of skill damage. Would that be a better choice? That raises my eyebrow to that possibility. If I find one, I'll definitely be testing that out and letting y'all know. But again, this also shows that certain things do work for certain pieces and whatnot. So it depends on what you want on your weapon. So I hope this helped y'all out.